Jim Brown to midfield. Jim Brown is going to go all the way for a touchdown.
He's a hard man to stop.
9 seasons. That's all it took for Jim Brown to rewrite the NFL record books and completely revise our concept of what a football player can be.
If you've seen Jim Brown play, you would say powerful, fast, yet graceful and violent. He had the ability to run you over.
It was almost like he was out there playing with kids. They were bouncing off of him. He was bigger than everyone, faster than everyone, and stronger than everyone.
His running style, his determination, it really makes you realize what football is all about.
In an astounding 8 of his 9 seasons, Brown would lead the NFL in rushing, setting what at the time were league marks for rushing yards, rushing touchdowns, total touchdowns, and all-purpose yards. A 3-time MVP, in 1964, Brown would carry Cleveland to what remains the city's last major sports championship.
The Browns have won the championship 27-0.
Hollywood took notice of Brown's star quality, and in 1966, when Brown was cast in The Dirty Dozen, production delays led to his missing the start of Brown's training camp. When owner Art Modell threatened to fine Brown, the franchise icon retired instead.
Leaving your sport at the height of your sport and then going into motion pictures, going into television, he paved the way for a lot of black athletes that were aspiring to do the same thing.
Never one to back down from a challenge on the field, Brown would take that same mindset into his endeavors off the field, becoming a major advocate for causes including civil rights, economic equality, and reducing gang violence.
The transition to life after football is very difficult for a lot of ball players. He showed that he could use his power of football to make a difference in the community, to make a difference in civil rights. To me, he was one of the first players to show that the transition, that after football, life is not over. Matter of fact, life is just beginning.
A Hall of Famer in multiple sports, an unqualified success in numerous endeavors, he was a product of his times who also transcended them. A true titan of the game of football and beyond, Jim Brown.
And it's hard to believe it's been 50 years since he last graced an NFL field, and his impact is still being felt. Let's go players only for more on that.
So, guys, my first time in Cleveland, when I signed with Cleveland, the first thing I wanted to do was run into Jim Brown's office and have a conversation and meet him. I was so in awe and so intimidated by a man who's done so much on the field, but off the field. You talk about social change. You talk about being one of the guys that I've actually had an opportunity to go to his house and sit down and talk about football issues, but social issues. He's deep. And I know as a running back, you looked up to him and tried to at least be somewhat.
Well, he's the godfather of the running back position. You look to get respect from Jim Brown. And I remember, you know, there was early in my career, I looked for anything that he said about me, whether it was through the media, in the paper.
He did that about a certain Cleveland running back.
Yeah, I know. But you wanted that approval because all we heard, me growing up from my dad and my uncles, Jim Brown, the man. Like, no one would ever be better than Jim Brown. And so you always search for that approval from Jim Brown. And I remember the day I passed him in rushing, ironically, we were playing Cleveland. He was at the game. And I remember, man, trying so hard. Here we go. And it took a while for me to get to the record of breaking Jim Brown's record. But once I did it, I knew where he was sitting at. And that's why I pointed up at him like, I respect.
Yes.
I love you, man. You're the reason why I do this.
That's awesome. And Malik, as a younger player, like, I know he's a little older and, you know, he did his thing in his era. When you see Jim Brown, do you guys still respect the fact that he was one of the greatest of all time at his position for 8 out of the 9 years he played the running back position?
Of course. You know, I think he's a pioneer in his position, one of the few guys to be great at it, you know, early. And I think what he did, not only on the field, you know, with being a great football player, just off the field with, you know, you see him doing the gang prevention and all that stuff, you know, kind of try to be a leader in things and show us as players, you know, that you can do great things off the field. You know, it's not all about putting on pads. You can go do something in your community and really kind kind of change things.
And it's direct change from where we are, because we both grew up in this area.
Yeah.
So we're able to see
ask you about.
Jim Brown in the communities.
He brought the game bangers together, right? You guys
are the game
here.
prevention.
So
he's talking about, building strong families. He's talking about education. He's talking about bringing the communities back together, and that you can use your star, your star status, and come back and touch young lives and young people and make a difference. Not just for football, but actually in your neighborhood and in your community.
And when he talked to you, he had a way of talking to you and energizing you, making you feel like you needed to do more in your community. And Jim was always willing to call on younger guys to help his cause. I remember a couple of times he called me. I'm doing this. Are you available?
Can't say no. Yeah, I'm available.
You can't say no.
My first conversation with Jim is, Malik, he never wanted to talk about football.
Yeah.
He wanted to talk about life, what was going on in life. And, I found out some interesting things. I didn't know he was a Hall of Famer in lacrosse. As well.
That's crazy.
Wow. So he's had a lot of accomplishments, but he never really wants to talk about himself.
I think that's a sign of not only a great player, but a great man. You want to find out something about somebody else, not just talk me. I think that just shows the character you have, and I think he's a man with great character, and, people should strive to be like him, especially now.
Yeah. Well, happy birthday to Jim Brown, one of the best that's ever do it, and that's still doing it.